Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to another edition of the Dialogues with Smart City Administrators, organized by the National Water Mission in association with APAC News Network. Uh, Many of you would be aware that we are having the webinar with the district magistrates for more than 2 years, and where we have covered more than 100 districts. The DMs have presented the work on the water management, on catch the rain campaigns they have been doing in their districts. Now the focus is on role of policy, people, and innovation for urban water management. And that's why we have a galaxy of policymakers from the smart city and from extreme north, uh, Kashmir and Jammu smart city CEOs, to the western side, Silvassa smart city CEO we have with us, and um, the one person who is spearheading this whole management thing. We have Ms. Deboshri Mukherjee, IAS, and Additional Secretary of Ministry of Jal Shakti and MD of the National Water Mission, Government of India. Welcome, Deboshri ma'am. And before I ask ma'am to deliver her keynote address, let me introduce the other speakers who are joining today. We have with us uh, Athar Amir Khan, IAS Commissioner, Srinagar Municipal Corporation, and CEO of Srinagar Smart City. Welcome, Athar. And the Srinagar PPT will be presented by the Chief Engineer Iftikhar Kakru. Welcome, Mr. Iftikhar.
Thank you.
Uh, we are joined by Rahul Yadav, IAS Commissioner, Jammu Municipal Corporation and CEO of Jammu Smart City. Welcome, Rahul. And we are also joined by Charmi Parekh, Deputy Collector, SDM and CEO of Silvassa Smart City. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
And without any further ado, I would like to now hand it over to Deboshri ma'am to deliver her keynote address.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a real pleasure to have with us the young municipal administrators, two from Jammu and Kashmir and one from Silvassa. And all three of them, it is a strange coincidence, now part of the cadre that I am also part of, Union Territories cadre, AGMUT. So welcome to all three of you. It's this is I'm sure all of you know that the National Water Mission is tasked with increasing water conservation and recharge in order to strengthen the water security of the country. At the same time, the objective is also to combat climate change through local solutions. Because what we're seeing increasingly, and data is clear, that climate change manifests itself and is manifesting itself most prominently through changes in the water cycle. Now, IPCC predictions and also predictions by the Ministry of Earth Sciences more recently indicate that for the next 50 years, we don't expect reduction in the total amount of water that is available in the country. But we expect changes in the spatial and temporal variability of the availability of water, which basically means that we will have extreme events like, extreme rainfall, extreme snow precipitation. We also may have longer dry spells, longer droughts. So therefore, water recharge, water conservation, storage of water in order to be prepared for these extreme events, it becomes so much more important. Now, one of the things that National Water Mission does, again, to sort of bring everybody on board, is to amplify the efforts of people who are working in the field. One such effort is we do water talks every month with a prominent civil society organization, somebody not from the government, people who are mobilizing communities, people who are mobilizing technology on water. So just yesterday, we had a gentleman called Anand Maligawad. I don't know if you know of him. He has been rejuvenating with CSR support lakes in Bengaluru, and also now is taking his efforts to other parts of the country, and doing yeoman service in terms of, and he made a great presentation on the rejuvenation and his processes, because what we try to do is get people involved in answering the hows. So the other part that we do, as was explained, is we've been talking to administrators. We've been talking to DCs about what they're doing about improving water recharge and conservation in their districts. And then we realized we had a gap. We are not talking to city administrators. We are not talking to municipal authorities. So therefore, we have now started the dialogues with the municipal administrators. And I think these conversations teach us an enormous amount. I think one is sharing this, and we are also using this material we're sharing it with the academy. We're trying to get other civil servants sort of amplify this work so civil servants can learn from it. But also it helps when you are to learn from young people in the field when you're trying to look at changes in policy. So these dialogues are of great benefit and of great value to us. When now moving on to urban water management, I think all of you are in the field, you know more about the issues that you encounter, but I will just flag two or three issues. One is that when you do urban planning, integrated urban planning, are we planning blue green infrastructure together? So, I mean, are we looking at municipal wastewater treatment? Are we looking at our parks? Are we looking at, so what are those blue green linkages? Are our pavements permeable? Now, when urban flooding happens, as is happening in many cities across the country, there are, sometimes the rain happens, we may not be able to absolutely reduce the impact, but eliminate the impact, but we can reduce it if our cities are prepared to manage the rain better. So blue green infrastructure. The second challenge for us is, how do you make the invisible visible? And when I talk about invisible, I really talk about two things. One is groundwater, and the second is wastewater. How can we get communities involved in understanding the condition of their groundwater? How can we make wastewater an asset, and also, make it visible? Where does your wastewater go? Incidentally, I was in Mussoorie, I think a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking to some officers who will move out into the field. And I asked them, do you know where Mussoorie gets its water supply from? And two or three of them did know. But the fact that Mussoorie gets its water supply from 20 springs is something that not too many people would know. So the issue is, how do we make these invisible things more visible to the community and make water everybody's business? Finally, again, consciousness about the water energy nexus. Cities bring water from long distances. There is a cost to it. There is a fiscal cost, there is an environmental cost. So how more effectively can we find localized solutions to enhance water security in our cities, and also to make our cities more competitive? I will stop here because I'm very eager to listen to you. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am, for talking about, warning about the extreme conditions and how that implies the need for conservation of water, and also explaining the rationale behind involving the municipal commissioners and the smart city CEOs on these water management dialogues. For our first speaker of the day, I would now hand it over to Atar, and Atar, you can introduce Iftikhar and give the presentation about Kashmir the steps that has been taken in Srinagar uh, smart city on urban water management. Over to you, Atal.
Uh, Thank you so much, and good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir, and all the panel members. It's a absolute pleasure to be here. In fact, with me is our Iftikhar Kakru Saab. He's the chief engineer. The reason for him requesting him to also join us is that he has worked in this field on the hydrology, on the Jahlim irrigation flood control, and others, including the 2014 floods. So his experience goes for around 30-35 years. So that's when I thought that probably he's also one of the very few people in the country who have got this kind of an experience, and that's why I requested him to join us on the panel. So, ma'am, we have got a little presentation also. What I'll do is, I'll go through the presentation, and I'll also request Iftikhar Saab to intervene in between and add up wherever he finds that it is more appropriate. That would probably be more in the interest of time as well. In Srinagar, when we're talking about both the urban water management, there are three broad areas that we are working on and that we are looking at. One is the water bodies per se. We have the city has number of water bodies, which of course two are very prominent, famous. One is the Dal Lake, and then the other lakes adjoining the Dal Lake, which include Nigeen, the Kushalsar, Gilsar lakes, and others. There are other smaller lakes also in the city, along with other wetlands. And then the one another major, which is the river Jhelum, which forms the major flood basin, major flood channel, or the major outfall of the whatever drainage happens within the city. Along with that, we have a number of the channels which connect these different water bodies together. So one part is the water bodies. That how do we work around these water bodies? Whether it's the Dal Lake, how do we conserve? How do we restore many of those? How do we rejuvenate many of those? So that's been one part of whatever interventions that we have been doing here. Another is River Jhelum. Traditionally, Srinagar as a city, it is something which had gotten established or habitated around the river itself. So it, just like Indus, similarly, it's the basic lifeline in the city. And it used to be the major source of commerce, major source of transportation, major area of economic activity for people in the city. In fact, even when we go through the old city, most of the houses, they are river facing. Now, over a period of time, what has happened is that these houses have started facing, keeping their rear towards the river. So, another important work that we have been trying to do through Smart City in particular is number one, how do we again restore the glory back to the river? How do we bring in activity and commerce back to the river? And also, how do we make river again a major source of major means of transportation? That's the river transportation talking per se. So this is one part, that's the water bodies, water body management of these water bodies that we have been working on. Another important part when we talk about is the two parts of our service delivery. One is the drinking water supply to the city. The city consumes around 90 mgd of water. So the supply side of it, how we kind of trying to improvise on the supply side with interventions like SCADA systems and others. And then the distribution side, how are we trying to reduce the NRW, and how are we trying to take care of the tail end issues, and also the areas which are newly getting established. That's the second portion of our interventions here. Third is a little interesting and maybe a little different from many other cities and very similar to many other cities as well. That is the drainage. The geography of the city is such that it's a very flat city. Most of the city is low lying, it's flat. Unlike what the perception is, Srinagar is not a hilly city. It's a very flat city. In fact, the river quite meanders through the city. So what happens is that
It
whenever
has a
there's
it has a 2 degree slope only, sir. 2 degree slope.
yes,
The,
absolutely.
the
So what
valley has a
happens?
2 degree slope. It's just almost flat.
So what happens is that we have to actually pump out water mechanically using external sources of energy into the river. So if we don't pump this water out, it will so natural gravity flow is very minimal. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we are facing. And in continuation to that challenge, in 2014 we had one of the unprecedented floods in the in Kashmir Valley, and Srinagar was almost entire city was inundated. Now that's kind of a benchmark with which we have started to work across, mostly through three different interventions. One is the World Bank project, which we call the Jahlim Tawi Flood Recovery Project. Another is the Government of India's Mahua's Amrut project, and third is the Smart City component. So with these three, we have kind of started to move forward from that 2014 situation in terms of developing capacities to drain water out, to pump water out of the city. So there's something, one of the remarkable work that has happened in past 4-5 years in the city. We have now around 85 permanent dewatering stations whose capacities have been increased to as much as 5 to 10 to 15 times more. All the control systems, the electricity backup, everything has been raised above the highest flood level, which means that even if we have unfortunately, if God forbid, if we have 2014 like situation, still our dewatering stations would be functional, and they will keep on pumping water out from the city. So that's one part of the story. But at the same time, there are immense challenges. We had recently hired one agency for making a drainage master plan for Srinagar city. Basic idea was to understand what kind of a network we have, where is the shortfall. And the conclusion in the inception report was that our city needs around 1600 kilometers of drainage network, and we only have around 650 kilometers. So we have to add up another 1000 kilometers of drainage network to the city, which is in a way huge infrastructure shortfall. So with that background, I'll quickly run through the presentation, which will give a little overview of the of what we are trying to do here. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Jahlim Basin. This is the Jahlim River, which is meanders to the city, and this is the kind of interventions we have actually tried to identify some of the major water bodies which are getting linked with the river. So this portion, which is very prominent, it passes through a central business district from Lal Chowk to then Batamalu to other places, and then goes towards the old city. So this is the topography that we were already talking about. So now these are the projects that we were talking about. One is the Jahlim riverfront development, in which we are trying to, number one, beautify the river on the both sides. So we have taken it in two stretches. It will cover almost most of the city. There's some portion is kind of green field, the rest of the portion is brown field. We are creating spaces for people where they can come, they can sort of sit together, they can also socialize. Again, some places where they can shop, they can sit, we can have these places for walking, for cycling, etc. Similarly, then and all across the river we have around 45 traditional ghats. So we're trying to revive those river ghats, and also we're trying to use some of these ghats for the water transportation purpose. Then we have the lake conservation. We have taken two important lakes. One is Gilsar and Khushalsar Lake. Basically, the water from the Dal Lake goes to one more lake called the Nigeen. Nigeen is still well conserved. From Nigeen, it actually goes through a channel called Nala Amir Khan, then to Gilsar and Khushalsar. Both these two lakes were almost dead and were full of muck and silt. So in order to ensure that the circulation system of the water is again revived, we have taken up the restoration of these both the lakes. I think in past 5-6 months we have been able to remove around 1500 dumpers and truckloads of muck and silt from these two lakes, which and that too in partnership with the people. In fact, the conservation of Khushalsar Lake was initially triggered by the local people, because in the whole theme we are talking about people and policy. So this is one of the important landmarks. In fact, this was also spoken to about by the Honorable Prime Minister also in one of his Mann Ki Baat interviews. Then Brari Number Lagoon, again we have taken it for conservation. Hokarsar wetland is another. Then there is this one Doodh Ganga Nala. It used to drain out water from almost one third of our city. It was completely gone. It's completely encroached, and we are trying to revive it again under our smart city. Then drinking water IT interventions. There's a SCADA system that we're installing on the entire supply network of our drinking water. Then along with that, the dredging and cleaning of other water bodies that we are working on, and also a water quality monitoring system for the entire city. I'll quickly go through the slides without taking these are some of the pictures of the riverfront development that is going on. Some of this work is already complete, but remaining is going on. This is what which we are envisaging on the riverfront. We're trying to have some access improvement, some public amenities, ghat improvement, improvement of the houseboats which are lying nearby. These are the approaches towards the riverfront from the Residency Road and other sides. This is how we want the riverfront to look like: a nice, good pathway for people to walk, and then the space around it, which is very open and accessible. We have dismantled a lot of walls on this. Right now, the dismantlation has happened. So then we're trying to restore it in this way. Then water transport, again, as I was talking about, that the city is facing one of the major challenge in terms of congestion, in terms of traffic jams. But both Jhelum as well as Dal Lake, they give us this opportunity to run water transport just like it is run in, say, Netherlands, in Amsterdam, or in London. That's what we are working on. One is a Jhelum cruise for tourism purposes. Another is the water transport. We are working on a PPP model for 10 years. In which we'll be having these electric powered cruise ships which are taking people from one part of the city to others as a full-fledged system of water transportation. Lake restoration. This is the Gilsar Lake that I was talking to you about. That the lake ecosystem here is such that water from Dal Lake goes into Nigin Lake, and from Nigin Lake it goes into Gilsar Lake. This is how this lake was just 6 months back, or with the picture on the left side. We have lifted all this muck and garbage and silt and these weed out of this lake, and then this is how it is looking right now. Again, the challenge is that it has to be done repeatedly because the siltation is happening. There is still heavy nutrient load in the water which is getting into these lakes. So we're trying to figure out how do we kind of sustain it, how do we stay ahead with the rate of sedimentation. This is the another lake that we're talking about, Gilsar Lake. This is how it was before the restoration and now how it is. And we, in the past few months, we've also seen in the winter some of the migratory birds coming back into these two places. So what we have essentially done is, number one, removed all the silt and muck from these lakes. Then there were a number of, all these lakes, they have a number of springs at different places, which are basically major source of fresh water to these, in addition to the regular flow. The restoration of those springs, and also channel development around the periphery so that the water movement and circulation keeps on going. This is the another lake that we have now taken up for rejuvenation. It is in the middle of the old city. We call this old city as Shahri Khas. This is the old city of Srinagar city. In the middle of the city, we have this lagoon. It's called a Brari Number. It used to be again connected with the Jhelum, and through a channel called a Navpura channel, it used to be connected with the Nigin and Dal system. Now completely defunct. In fact, the situation of this lake is such that it's difficult to even stand there for 5 minutes. The water stinks so much. So here our main effort right now is to, number one, improvise on the quality of the water. So what we're trying to do is, around this entire system, we are creating one garland sewer system so that we trap the sewerage or whatever grey water is getting into the lake, that we're kind of trying to trap and connect with the existing sewerage network that is there in the place. Then we have this one channel which is shown by this blue line. It's a Navpura channel. It's a major water source into this lake. The flow is around 4.5 MLDs of water. So we're constructing one STP, sewerage treatment plant, for whatever water is coming into this lake through this channel. And after treatment, then the water would go into the lake. And again, along with that, these are the 7 inlets that we are trying to work on. Desilting, reweeding, these are some of the inlets as of now and how we are trying to work on them. These are 7 major inlets from which water goes. We're trying to trap this water, connect this water to the sewerage system, and then whatever is the major source of water, that comes only after it is treated. These are some of the pictures from this place. This is some of the treatment system, very standard. This picture again, here what we are also trying to do, along with the mechanical and STP based treatment of the water, we are also trying to look at creating the sedimentation ponds and bioremediation as an additional source of treatment of this water. So that's the work that we have started. We had actually tendered this project already out. Because of certain reasons we have to kind of re-tender and redo it, so that it is at that stage right now. Then these are some of the channels which go into the lake. So through both municipal corporation as well as the smart city, we are kind of opening these channels up again, removing the silt, so that circulation system gets restored. This is Hokersar wetland. It is in fact a very famous. In 2005, it was included as one of the Ramsar sites. It has around 46 very important species of migratory flying birds, and somewhat another 60 odd wetland species of birds. So here also, in this restoration work we are trying to do, we're creating certain channels through this wetland, so that the water systems they are again restored in it. So this is the work that is already ongoing as of now in this wetland. This is another channel, the Dudhganga Nala, which I was talking about. It used to be the major flood channel in the city. It used to connect the southern part of the city towards, and then drain this water into the river Jhelum. Completely encroached. This is the situation of this Nala, of this river stream right now. And it has just gotten converted into so as to say, a sewerage stream. So again, we have worked out a system or mechanism of how do we start bioremediated, how do we create a polishing ponds, how do we create STPs and other sluice gates throughout the structure. And my sense is that once this is complete, it's going to be kind of a dual two-way win for us. One is whenever there are rains, this is going to be major channel for taking the water out from the city. And now in the normal days, it will also help us ensure that this whatever grey water is coming in, that gets treated, and only after treatment it goes out. So this is the IT system, that SCADA system that we were talking about, for the entire supply side network of water, drinking water in the city. Again, in this under Smart City mission, we are installing all these both quality as well as quantity meters and other systems, both IoT based, so that we have the real-time data with us and real-time mechanism for understanding how is the water supply, where are the issues, where are the faults. And so that's something, it's very generic. I think most of the cities are doing it, and this is something we thought may be important for mentioning here. So without going too much into the details of it, this is again one more channel called Kutkol. So there are actually 4 of these kols. Kol means stream in Kashmir. So apart from Jhelum and Dal system, these are 4 different channels which connect these different water bodies. So one is Nale Amir Khan. We already started working on these. This is another called Kutkol, Kut stream. So we are also restoring this stream back. So this is it. And then this is the final slide. We are also installing a real-time water quality monitoring system in the city. This is going to monitor the quality of water both in River Jhelum as well as in the Dal Lake and some of the other major water bodies. The idea is that let's kind of measure and understand what the quality is. So because as they say, what gets measured gets done. So that's the principle with which we are trying to work on. This stormwater drainage, as I was talking about, because city traditionally had seen floods recurringly. 2014 was one of the such an occurrence. So in stormwater drainage again, we have done this micro drainage basin management in the city. City has been converted 9 watersheds into 53 micro drainage basins, and then we have 84 of these dewatering stations which we have located. And these dewatering stations, they are connected to the drainage network in the area. So there's a submersible pumps inside the sumps. So water from the drains gets delivered into those sumps. Then there are filter chambers and sluice chambers, and from there on, this water gets pumped out through an outfall into the major water channel, either into a flood channel or into the Jhelum River, whichever is nearby. So this is the existing challenge. Many a times this is what happens whenever there's a small rain or post snow, when the snow starts to melt. This is the challenge that we face. So again, with this, what we have done is we have increased the capacity of these 84 dewatering stations to buy at least 10 times till now. All the equipment, state-of-the-art modern equipment has been installed. Everything, all power backup systems, control systems, people where they sit or control, that has been placed above the highest flood level. They have all been kind of redone. And besides that, with under both JTFRP, under Amrut, and several other programs, we have also upgraded our drainage network system. Yet challenges remain. I think quickly before I conclude, one of the challenges, of course, is the water quality. Now we are improvising on the circulation, but yet how do we get the BOD levels and other parameters down to the permissible ones, both in the rivers as well as in the lakes? That's one of the challenges. Another challenge is, of course, because the city does not have a separate drainage and a sewerage network, so everything is getting mixed up into the drain. So that's one of the major challenges in terms of infrastructure that we have. And going forward, that's going to be the major priority for the government, and we are trying to lay down that maybe a master plan or pathway for that planned development. Thank you. I think Ifkhar Saab, if you have something to add. And
Sir, I think you have covered it all. If I say something, it will be at the cost of repetition. The only thing that I would like to mention is that ma'am talked about the water energy nexus. And in Kashmir, we have a lot of upland water. And I don't think, I think our focus should be mainly on tapping the upland water rather than relying on lift stations and also groundwater. We have vast reservoirs of groundwater, but not mostly tapped, because we do not find a deficiency in source. There are isolated pockets where we have deficiency in source, but these can be overcome if we kind of identify bankable, dependable sources, and through a water conveying system, which is the cheapest version as far as water conveyance is concerned, through pipes. We can feed these areas. Right now, our focus should be on upland water, and I think because ma'am is also looking at the water mission. Right now, the focus of the government should be to kind of discourage use of lift stations for water supply schemes and rely more on gravity water or upland water. That's all I want to say. Rest, I think you have covered it all. So very nicely covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, you would like to give your feedback now or at the end?
No, I think I will wait. And excellent presentation, Athar. You worked, focused on the challenges and what you're doing. I may have one or two things to say, but I'll wait till the end.
Sure. So I would now like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Rahul Yadav, IAS Commissioner of Jammu Municipal Corporation and CEO of Jammu Smart City. Over to you, Mr. Rahul Yadav, for informing us about the work being done in Jammu.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon to the participants. As Athar has already pointed out, that Jammu Kashmir, basically we are water surplus, but problem with distribution and with the increased demand of water, we are also having problem of pollution of our water bodies and distribution of water properly. In Jammu, again, basically in Jammu, we are having Tavi is our major water source, and we are doing different projects under Smart City. One of them is under Blue Green Initiative. We are also doing some Blue Green Initiative in which we are developing. We are cleaning our canals, and we are developing amenities along our canals to give it an aesthetic look. Other than that, we are doing some work on water. It falls in Kandi belt, which is basically.
Rahul, just a second. I think maybe your network is giving trouble, because is it true of other people also? His voice is getting interrupted from time to time.
Ma'am. Some problem with the
I
voice.
think maybe turn off the video, then we'll be able to hear you better.
Is it better now?
Yes,
Am I
it's
audible?
better now. Yes, more audible.
Uh, Jammu basically falls in the Kandi belt, which is basically Bhabar belt, and we are having water scarce region in many area. Basically, Jammu is water scarce, and we are dependent on surface water supply and tube well irrigation in much of the area of Jammu. Uh, Traditionally, we were having many ponds in Jammu, but over the period, those ponds got encroached, and most of our water bodies are in very bad shape in Jammu municipal area. So, under Smart City, we have started one project for to identify all these water bodies, and can we have next slide, please? Next. Next slide. So, next, please. Under we have started one project for rejuvenation of water bodies. Under this, next slide, please. Under this, we have started the process to identify all the water bodies in Jammu Municipal Corporation area and rejuvenate all these water bodies. The broad objective was to rejuvenate the water bodies and to improve all the parameters of all these traditional water ponds we are having. We did a detailed survey of current biological oxygen demand, pH level, COD, DO. We have did a detailed survey of all of this, and after that, next slide, please. We have prepared a detailed plan. Under this, we are doing what we are doing. We are dividing all these water bodies. We are doing desludging of all these ponds so that we can increase the holding capacity of these ponds, and we are using traditional clay lining so that water can be retained for throughout the year. Bioremediation is the major part of our project, and other than that, because most of these water bodies basically they are over the period because many nalas being flooded on in these ponds, and they are basically decreasing the water quality as well as basically they are killing these water bodies. So we are also doing some civil works to tap all those nalas, and wherever necessary screen chambers, or we are basically also diverting many of these nalas which were falling in these water bodies. Next. Other than that, we are also constructing some civil amenities along these water bodies to give it an aesthetic look. Next. And our project also involved O&M of these water bodies for next 3 years. So for next 3 years, we will also be maintaining, means the same person will also be doing O&M. Water quality will be monitored every 3 months, and based on that, we will be doing further remediation if anything is required. So under this project, we have identified 61 water bodies in Jammu, and with a total area of 368 canal, and the current total volume of these water bodies is 3,39,000, and we will be the volume will be increased to basically 4,25,000. So there will be sufficient increase in the water capacity of these water bodies. Other than that, the current BOD is quite BOD demand is quite high, and the current available dissolved oxygen is almost nil in all these water bodies. So we will be increasing those. Next, please. So we will be improving the water on these parameters. Next slide, please. in a first go, we are taking 22 water bodies. We have identified 62 water bodies, but in first go we are taking 22 water bodies. 18 of them we are taking under smart city, and 3 of them we are taking under Amrut 2, and 1 we are taking under our district capex. Next, please. Next. These are the existing which for which we are doing remediation, and as you can see, many of them are actually in very bad shape. They are mostly enclosed and with the high basically weed, and the water quality is very bad. There is hardly any basically biological life, means there is hardly any fishes or such kind of biological life is available in these ponds these days. Next. So these are more pics of such ponds. This is one of the ongoing project where we are doing means where we are doing this restoration work. Bioremediation work will be starting after our basically monsoon season will be over. Most of basic means we have tendered all these works, and all these projects are under execution. But the main part, which is bioremediation, it will be taking place after our monsoon period is over. And we are also doing basically aeration of all these ponds to increase the dissolved oxygen quantity. Next. We will be also doing channeling, fencing of all these water bodies, so that basically so that they remain safe. And also other than that, there is a special emphasis on water channels, because many of our water bodies, due to basically unplanned development, the catchment areas of these water bodies get basically damaged quite badly, and they are not receiving the recharge. So this is one of the main reason of their encroachment, that over the period they are getting silted, and the proper recharge, they are not getting the proper recharge. So we are also doing the catchment treatment. Next. Next. These are some more water bodies we will be means for example, for these water bodies, this is our present water volume, and we will be increasing our water volume by almost 50%. And for current BOD and COD demand is quite high, and the dissolved oxygen is almost nil. In all the water bodies, the dissolved oxygen is almost nil, and we will be increasing on that. Next. As you can see, means most of these water bodies are having very high algae cover, and either they are basically means they are very badly infected with phosphorus and nitrogen contents. Next slide, please. Next, please. Next. Next slide. Other than that, we are also doing one rainwater harvesting structure for our town hall building. Next, please. In this project, we will be making our town hall building, means our office of municipal corporation. We will be making this building self-sufficient. We will be harvesting all the water in our town hall building complex, and storing in a tank, and after filtration we will be using that very water only. So we will be making our town hall building self-sufficient under this project, and maybe means we hope that we will be water surplus, means our building will be water surplus, and we won't be requiring any water supply from outside the area. So this is an ambitious project. We will be doing this. Means this is currently being tendered, but it is under execution. So under this means we will be collecting all the water all the water rainwater in the tank, and after filtration, and we will be using it for the supply purpose for our Jammu Municipal Corporation office. Next. Next. So this is basically means these are some of the project which we are doing in Jammu Municipal Corporation regarding water conservation. Means that, as ma'am has pointed out, that for blue green infrastructure and for urban flood, they are the relevant topic these days, and we are doing as
Thank you,
well.
Mr. Yadav, and we will wait for ma'am's feedback at the end. Now we'll come to our next speaker, Ms. Charmi Parekh, Deputy Collector, SDM, and CEO of Silvassa Smart City. And before I hand it over to her, I would commend you for attending today's webinar despite the flooding situation in Silvassa. So over to you, Ms. Charmi Parekh.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and dear colleagues. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate. I would really like to appreciate the opportunity that has been given to us to talk about the urban water management, as well as to discuss what all solutions also can be brought about. So, can we start with the presentation, please? Yes. Next slide, please. So I would quickly like to introduce Silvassa city. So unlike other cities of India, many major cities of India, Silvassa has a very different birth history. Even in 19th century, Silvassa was just a little village. And because of tax breaks given by government of India, the entire region of Daman, Silvassa, Vapi, it flourished as an industrial town, and slowly and rapidly also we have seen the urban sprawl here. Next slide, please. So this is the Silvassa Smart City project area, where ABD area is somewhere around 7 square kilometers, and the other area, SMC area, is also somewhere around 17.20 square kilometers. Next slide, please. The main source of drinking water as well as for other activity is the Damanganga river. This Damanganga river flows through Maharashtra to Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and later on goes to Daman and then merges into the sea. So it crosses many states and union territories also. And there is an MOU with the Damanganga Canal Authority, where 48.19 MLD is allotted to the UT of Dadra and Nagar Haveli. And if we see the demand that was in 2019, which was 18.10 MLD, now if we calculate it, we can see it in the next slide. The 19.44 MLD is the calculated water demand for Silvassa urban area, and urban population is somewhere around 1,44,000, and the number of households are 38,680. If we talk about the water supply coverage that has been provided till now by the Silvassa Municipal Council in the urban area is 64.63%, and Silvassa Smart City in its mission has aimed for 100% saturation by 2024. Currently, we are supplying water approximate around 8 hours to the households, which definitely will be made available for 24 hours by 2024. And currently the supply per capita is 102 LPCD, which will be made to 135 LPCD. And as I said, there is only 64% coverage. So from 25,000 households, we'll be covering entire population of urban area, that is 38,680 households. Next slides, please. So talking about various projects related to water supply as well as sewerage, under Silvassa Smart City, the first thing that we are going to do, I would like to say that there is an integrated project of roads, water supply, as well as sewerage management in Silvassa Smart City that is costing us somewhere around 570 crores. The work order was provided in December end, and few of the components of that project related to water supply and sewerage works are energy audit. So first of all, we will be doing the energy audit of all our pumping stations, our entire sewerage network system also, and to get to know how much uh, energy is being utilized, or let's say wasted in running the entire network. And ma'am, as you had correctly pointed out towards the beginning itself, that there is a cost in providing the water also and treating the sewerage also. So the energy audit would help us in doing so. The next stage would be the infrastructure assessment of both water supply as well as sewerage network. And we will be joining the water supply and sewerage network with the SCADA system, which will be bringing us the information and required data to our ICCC center also. For providing of water supply, we will be installing the bulk flow meters also at various places, and smart metering is also envisaged in this project. As I said, infrastructure assessment for sewerage as well as SCADA is also envisaged. And apart from that, if we talk about the blue to green linkages, we have a river. It is actually a tributary of Damanganga River, which is called as Piparia. So we have also planned for Piparia River Conservation Project. Next slide, please. So if I talk about energy audit, we all know that energy audit is an assessment and analysis of the flow of energy into the entire system. And we basically want to assess where we are going wrong and where we can improve more, and how we can have the data collected, and in assessing also in making our networks better. So the first and foremost condition is the energy audit, and we are going to start with it pretty soon. And our project also envisages having the energy audit at the end of the project as well, somewhere around 2024 also, and then for 3 years also. Next, please. So, talking about 24/7 water supply that has been envisaged in this project. Next slide. Next slide, please. As I said, we will be augmenting our water supply. So we are not looking for installation of any new schemes, but we will be putting in more pumping stations and pumps at various places. And we will be augmenting our capacity by doing technical changes, like we will be getting our hydrological model. And after the assessment of the entire infrastructure, we will definitely rehabilitate it also. And by installing the meters and having our district metering areas, we will be looking at the pressure management and leakage management system also through our energy audits. And as I said, because the meters are going to be installed, it will definitely have an impact on the behavior of the people also. Earlier, the Silvassa Municipal Council, while providing water, had a flat rate for drinking water as well as for other usage. But as we install the meters, which will be quantity based meters as well, so we will get to know how much we are utilizing the water, and it will also encourage citizens and the consumers to save more and more water. Apart from that, since we have a SCADA system, we will be having a good technological support, and the data also, the assessment also, where we can divert our water at what point of time, depending on their usage and their demands. So for that also, we will be requiring the policy intervention as well as budgetary and commercial interventions as well. Next slide, please. So, looking at the infrastructure assessment of the water supply in the ABD area of the Silvassa Municipal Council, we currently have one 4 MLD plant which is going to be demolished under this project. But apart from that, one 11 MLD plant is under testing phase, and this will help us in providing water supply 24/7 to the ABD area as well as the rest of the households which were not earlier covered. And water will also be provided to the periphery of the ABD area through this project. Next slide, please. So all of us know how SCADA and bulk flow meter works, but other processes of our entire project would, as I said, dismantling of 4 MLD plant and the augmentation of the water supply, and connecting the entire water network with the SCADA system. And apart from that, wherever we require, we will also be installing lifting cranes also for pumps for 15 MLD plant. Next slide, please. So I'm sure everybody knows how the water meters also work. So as I said, ours is a quantity-based water meter. So we will be getting data from each and every meter on the usage of the water at each and every household, and that will be the entirely automated system. Next slide, please. Talking about the sewerage network. Next slide. If we look at the number, we already have a 13 MLD sewerage treatment plant installed, but the current capacity at which it is running is only 3 MLD. So again, under the integrated project of road sewerage and water supply, we have envisaged that we will be providing 100% saturation by 2024. The pipeline, the network has almost been laid at every point of Silvassa Municipal Council. However, the house-to-house connections remains. So that's why the efficiency of the collection is around 18.70% right now, which we want to take it to 100%, and the quality should also improve as we will be reaching our 33,680 households, which are currently standing at 6,300. Next slide, please. So here also talking about the infrastructure assessment and then joining it with SCADA, we will be covering the entire area of Silvassa Municipal Council, which is missing from the network currently, and we'll be joining it with SCADA system. Next slide, please. The SCADA system also envisages the automated chlorination of the system. So there is again less of manual intervention there. These are the workings of the SCADA system. Next slide, please. Talking about the blue to green linkages, as I talked earlier, there is a tributary of Damanganga River, which is called Piparia, and we have included in our plan a Piparia River Conservation Project. We will be floating the tender very soon in couple of days, and we are looking at bringing in an agency which will work for us. The cost is somewhere around 10.5 crores for the entire project. Next slide. So as other people have already talked about the conservation projects, I just would like to run through the process of NEERI that has been identified, where the water gets in, and then there are screens, and then there is a sedimentation tank, and then there is an aeration tank so that the bad smell goes away, and then there would be bio rafts for the bioremediation process. So this entire next slide, please. The Piparia River that I'm talking about is of the length of 6.7 kilometers. As I said, the river, Damanganga River, as well as its tributaries, they come from Maharashtra, then Gujarat, and then touches the Union Territory of Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Silvassa town. Towards top left, the blue line is the river, Piparia River, and towards top left there is an industrial area, entirely industrial zone, and this is where the most contamination also happens. So this is where we are envisaging our bioremediation plant would come, and We are in the process of coming up with a policy where we are treating this water, and then we will be giving the water to the industries for their industrial purpose as well. So there are also takers for this treated water. Next slide, please. Apart from that, talking about some other activities that Silvassa Smart City has been doing is uh, removing manual scavenging entirely from the municipal area. So we have procured a robotic cleaning manhole cleaning machine. So somewhere around 350 manholes will be cleaned using this Bandicoot machine. So it is entirely operated by robot, and there is one screen, and a person outside on the earth can operate it, and it does a wonderful job. Next slide, please. Apart from that, as ma'am also talked about making the invisible things visible, there is this huge ESR that is in the middle of the city. So we kind of did a placemaking uh, under our smart city mission. Next slide, please. Apart from this, we engage into plantation activity on almost every occasion, especially at our sewage treatment plants, through our river beds also, and our WTPs as well. So smart city team keeps on engaging with citizens as well in making the city more green. Next slide. And one more initiative that we have taken along with revenue department, because as we talked how urban flooding happens because of heavy rains. So uh, places of Mumbai, Silvassa, Vapi, Valsad, Surat, each and every city has seen almost flooding or flood like situations in last couple of weeks, especially last week. So what we are doing is that we have mapped all our streams, all our ponds, and all our water bodies through GIS, and we have done a massive encroachment removal drive just before the monsoon, and desilting also of some nalas, as well as the streams that are coming downstream. So that has definitely I would not say that the waterlogging problems did not happen in urban area, but it has definitely brought the number very much down. So we will continue to do so after the season allows. But as I said, along with revenue department, along with civic authorities, we have because as I said, Silvassa is a massively industrialized towns also, and along the nalas and kotars, we found a lot of illegal construction happening, a lot of encroachment happening, because in dry season these nalas also dry up, and as soon as there is a first or second spell of heavy rains, these nalas get flooded like anything, and then it brings about a flood like situation. So after monsoon also we will be continuing with the encroachment drive, and that is how again we are making it visible to people that it is not okay to encroach on our water bodies also. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. And before I request Debashri ma'am for the feedback, can I request all the panelists to switch your cameras on? Uh, yeah, thank you. And now may I request Debashri ma'am for your feedback and your closing statement.
Thank you, Athar, Iftikar Rahul, Charmi. They were very interesting presentations, all three of them. Athar, just a quick question. I mean, you've been talking about silt ingress and ways and means in which, you know, to manage silt as you clean your water bodies once, but there's continuous silt ingress. Is there a part, as a part of your plan, are you also looking at this issue of mapping your catchment and catchment treatment in terms of green vegetation?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. In fact, what's happening, for example, I'll take this example of Gilsar Lake. So, the inflow into this lake is from number one is the main channel, which is coming from the Nigin Dal Lake, then Nigin Lake. And so, siltation or whatever flow is going into the lake, whatever nutrient load is going to the Dal Lake, it gets then it flows into this lake also. Then there are a number of say sewerage points or some grey water points which directly enter into this water body or other allied channels into it. So they also add a lot of this. Similarly, towards when we go towards the northern side of the city, we have some of the agricultural activity being done there. So fertilizer there, and whenever rains happen, that gets washed into it. Similarly, on one part of it, what we have found is there's a large number of community which works on the animal rearing and mostly dairy farming. So again, what they do is the cow dung and everything, it is kept outside or near the banks of the river. So it again flows into this. So one is of course the nutrient load that we are kind of trying to map so that we take care of it at the source itself. Number one. Number two, because these are linked to the bigger water bodies. So of course the water quality will be highly dependent on the water quality of the bigger this. Though in the bigger water body, dilution effect comes into picture. Here it gets more concentrated. So that is one part that we are working on. Third is, of course, the siltation also, because rains happen very frequently, then the mud, silt, everything goes in. Then another part is because these lakes are live and in fact vegetation and all that ecological succession, it's a natural process that will grow. So if we leave the lake as it is, it will get converted into a forest maybe in a decade or so. So how to stop that? Maybe that natural process also in a way. That's again what we are trying to work on, so that the pace with which we do the treatment of these whatever siltation sources or the nutrient sources from the without before they enter into the lakes. One part is that we are kind of trying to map and again work on that. Second is the process of the removal. How do we do it in a more sustainable way, rather than we are kind of using machines every now and then it gets silted again and then we do it. So how do we do that? Similarly, what we have tried to do is we're trying to place a number of trash guards and certain desiltation mechanisms across the stretch, so that then we have certain specified places where siltation happens and water below it goes with lower silt load. That's again something that we have been trying to work on.
Thank you. Rahul, interesting work on mapping all your water bodies and ponds and trying to rejuvenate them. One area that I'm I'd like to ask you about is how are you involving the community? The fact that you need communities to be part of your rejuvenation effort and to have a stake in maintaining the water bodies. That's something that I found interesting about Athar's presentation, where the community will probably have an economic stake in the water body and therefore will try to preserve the water body better. So is there a way in which you're involving the community in the rejuvenation of the water bodies?
Yes, ma'am. We are involving the local communities and local stakeholders, our corporators in the whole process. And most of these water bodies basically means identification is also is done by the community itself, because one or two water bodies are basically which were fully filled with no water basically collection as on date, but they were existing in our revenue record. So identification of those were done by our local stakeholders only. And because many of these water bodies are encroached on revenue record, we may be having basically area of 2 acre or 3 acre, but on spot it is basically less than 1 acre. So for removal of those encroachment as well, we are we require the support from the locals, and we are taking help from them for removal of encroach, as well as for the catchment treatment, because many of these catchment areas right now there is construction or there is basically farmers field in those areas, but we are taking them into loop so that we can have this catchment treatment as well for the basically stoppage of drainage as well. We are providing them alternate drainage, but at the same time for their cooperation is required so that it doesn't get basically silted again.
So just for your information, if you look yesterday, it should be on our portal. There's a very good presentation that Mr. Anand Maligawad made. And part of his presentation was how they engage with the local community, step by step. How is he bringing, who are the major stakeholders? How is he bringing them on board? I found that very interesting. You might want to look at that.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Charmi, excellent presentation about looking at water supply and wastewater networks and how you're strengthening those networks and making, as Athar said earlier, that if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get done. So I see that measurement happening. So quick question: when you are you dealing with the problem of salinity ingress in your area? In your groundwater, is that something that is a challenge? And are you is there some thinking going on over there, or is it not a problem in Silvassa?
It is not a problem as such in Silvassa, ma'am, because during normal season for at least 8 to 9 months, we get groundwater at somewhere around 25 to 30 meters only. And even during summers, it goes till 50. So as such, it's not a problem. It is a fertile land also because two major rivers are passing through this region. So salinity is as such not a problem here, ma'am.
Okay, but are you the measurement of your ground? Because Goa, this was one of our problems, where wells that people had been using for traditionally for water supply were becoming saline as there's more extraction of groundwater. So and reduction in river flows. So that's not a problem in Silvassa? That's not
Till
something
now,
you're
it
dealing with?
has not been, ma'am, but we will keep on measuring and we will take proactive steps that it does not happen.
Right. So thank you, all three of you, and Iftikhar Saab, sorry, all four of you. So it's been a very interesting session. Thank you. I've learned a lot. And I think that, the work that you're doing, we should be able to amplify and other people will learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
And
you so much.
thanks to Athar, Rahul, Charmi, and Iftikhar Saab for the wonderful presentations today. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.